I realized too that I think I talk a lot about how I should talk about mental health, or I shouldn't, or I should stop, and I should start, and maybe I'll stop forever, and blah, blah, blah. And I don't think that it's a matter of cutting it out. I think it's a matter of talking about whatever it resonates to talk about. Not thinking in terms of right, wrong, should, shouldn't. That changes on a daily basis. So just talking about it when it comes up. But I did notice that I'm not really a Twitter person, but I do get those emails with the links to click on the different stories, and so I click away at some of them, and a lot of times it is something that piques my interest. I clicked on one, and it brought me to the most weird study ever. It is a study that they're doing where people who are in mania can submit a photo of their eyes, and they're collecting 1,000 eyes, 1,000 pairs of eyes, when people self-identify as being in mania, to see if they can create an algorithm or an app to help people to see if they're in mania or not. So after they create this algorithm, they might have an app where somebody that has bipolar disorder can take a picture of themselves anytime, and the app will tell that person if they're in mania. And that seems good in a way, but it was kind of freaky. It reminded me of that movie I Origins. Really strange. And it also, the description on the page, it's put on by, I'll have to talk about it a little more later because I forget the university that's putting it on. It's SMU, Southern something something. And on the description on the page, that was really bizarre to me, because it says bipolar disorder is a genetic disorder that affects 4 to 6% of people, something something. It goes on to say that this physiological mechanism of maybe the eyes changing or pupils changing or whatever they're going to calculate could help to show that it's a physiological disorder. And I really don't know about that. Of course there's physiological changes. I've talked about that myself, how in that state I'm stronger. So they could create an app to see if you're stronger than usual, to say that you're in mania, or so many different things. And they're choosing the eyes. And whatever. But the line that stuck out to me in a way was that this could encourage people to accept help and seek treatment. So that's the part I don't really like, because it could get to a point one day where they have to check our eyes every time we go to see a psychiatrist. So it's not necessarily a self-directed algorithm where I can choose to look at my eyes if I want to see if I'm in that state, and seek help if I want to a point where they'll just check our eyes every day. And if our eyes say that we're in that state, an altered state of consciousness, in mania or something, then they could say, well, you have to take this drug. And that's scary to me, because they talked about that a little bit in the book Stealing Fire, where they could have sort of biological and physiological passports like they do for athletes in the Olympics. They have to submit all their baseline numbers, and if they vary from the baseline, they can be punished, they can be charged. And people who are in altered states of consciousness and get diagnosed with bipolar, when we get hospitalized and medicated against our will, we're basically being punished with medications for having different states of consciousness than we usually do, or other people usually do. So this eye testing algorithm could just be another way that they implement forced treatment. It's one thing for us to use it if we want and seek help if we want. It's another for us to be required to take a picture of our face every day. And then it'll tell us what meds we have to take based on that. And then there's technology out there where I found out about a certain type of antipsychotic where once you take it and it goes in your stomach, they know if you took it or not. This is actual science. And this is for people who are mandated to take meds when they're on extended leave or however the heck it works. It can be an extension of criminal justice or psychiatry. But when it goes into your stomach, your own unique stomach, they know if you took it or not. So these things can be good, but they can be not good. So I was not at all tempted to send pictures of my eyes to help them to figure out this algorithm. I don't think it proves a physiological disorder. Of course, there's physiological changes. When the mind changes, the body changes. It's one uniform process. They're not actually separate things at all. And I feel like in mania, we're able to process a lot more information, so it makes sense that the pupils would dilate to let in more light, let in more information. So we're in a state of heightened information processing. Whether or not we can integrate, ground, move with all that information in daily life is another story. But to have this app or algorithm to help us seek help, if we had to do that daily, it'd be like, well, today you got to take a benzodiazepine because your eyes are too dilated, or however it works. That's a really scary line. So we will accept help and seek treatment. And it could be right now, since I've been in this heightened state from fasting and getting a lot done, my pupils could be messed right now for sure. But that's why for me it's really important to see if these micronutrients can keep me going. And today was the first sign of yikes, I don't know. And it's right at this decision time of taking this full-time job or staying around, and even what I've designed for myself lately in terms of staying where I am might be a bit much. So I really have to be careful. I think I should go on this retreat to the island in 2 weeks. I've done a lot of designing lately, and that's what I wanted to do. And I wonder if they do develop this algorithm and app to help people see if they're in mania. And that's another thing they said in the description, because a lot of us lack insight. And it could be, I don't know, whatever. So yeah, that was the tweet that I read, and I wonder if Hearty Nutritionals can help with the pupil thing that happens, or the eye change. So if seeking help can be taking more Hearty Nutritionals or starting on Hearty Nutritionals as opposed to psychopharmaceuticals. So that would be something, if they ever created that app, I could check myself out and then take Hearty Nutritionals. Or maybe somebody goes into their first mania and then they take Hearty Nutritionals. Well, does that alter this eye change algorithm that they're trying to see if there is? And they're making all these leaps in what that could mean. Like, this means it's a physiological thing. Well, it could just mean that the mind and body are really one thing, not it's physiological as opposed to nothing. The rest isn't nothing. It's all tied together. So it could be helpful. It's just a matter of if we have enough self-direction in place so that app and algorithm isn't used to direct us back into psychopharmacology. And the other thing that I clicked on was something about the 10 best bipolar blogs. And I clicked on a couple of them and read the intro page, and it was a lot of, oh, bipolar 1 is this and bipolar 2 is that, and all the crap that you can read on any wiki page or pharmaceutical promoting page. It's the same stuff they tell us to believe about ourselves. But anyway, one that caught my attention, and I didn't write down the name of the blog, but I will put the web address when I edit this later, was a woman who talked about how she was well for 12 years, I think, and had a relapse after watching a show called 13 Reasons Why on Netflix. So, warning to myself, do not watch that show. And her article was long and very well written, but it was the classic, things got worse, so then I tried to bump up my psychiatrist appointment, like that is the be-all end-all. And it is for most people right now, for sure. But if I had a crisis right now, the last thing I'd want to do is see a psychiatrist. But it just is that flavor of psychiatrists will save us, when that is not in my feeling of things. But it was well written. I'm glad that she made it through with some kind of med change and hospitalization and things. But one part that resonated with me was before my last hospitalization in April 2016, the really bad one, I started watching a show on Netflix called The OA. And I won't say what it stands for because that kind of spoils it. But if one has a label of some kind of serious and persistent mental illness, I would recommend not watching the OA, because it's possible. And I think I've talked about this show a little bit before with myself. And I think that reading what she wrote, and I didn't read her post about what she thought of the show 13 Reasons Why in particular. And I didn't even fully read her post that I was reading. I caught the flavor of, oh, the system will save me, and it did save her and help her, and that's great. But part of the point was that binge watching a show on Netflix that's really impactful isn't good. And part of the point for me is that people like us are really sensitive to these things. We're sensitive to these really graphic and disturbing, and these shows that really are meant to push our limits of what we think is happening in the world and acceptable. And I don't know even what 13 Reasons Why is about. I think it might have had something to do with suicide, and it can be really disturbing. And I feel partly that, why are we not more disturbed by these shows to the point that we can't even watch them? I think part of what's disturbing about it is people who are sensitive, people who have been labeled with mental illnesses, they could watch this stuff and really be deeply impacted by it to the point where it messes with their own personal wellness, because it's hard to process all that is showing in the show. It's so graphic and disturbing, yet it's equated with entertainment. And the people who can just watch it and be entertained and barely be disturbed, that's more disturbing to me. I can't even watch it. It's way too disturbing. But by watching more and more of this ever-expanding range of disturbing stuff, it is acclimating us to that being okay in a way. And I'm not saying everyone that watches it and just goes to sleep at night is okay with it, but it's like a test from the universe. Can we watch all this graphic stuff and then just go about our lives and not do anything about it? Not do anything about anything? Maybe do some stuff about some things, but mostly our own personal problems and pleasures. And the more of us that watch all this disturbing stuff and just sit by and do nothing, it's telling the universe we're just going to continue to sit by and do nothing. And then meanwhile, in apparent reality, more and more disturbing stuff is happening, and we're okay with it because the entertainment industry is expanding our okayness. And then people just go to sleep at night and go to work the next day and talk about that show like it was entertainment, and maybe it was mildly impactful and things, and yet there's people out there that'll watch it and it's enough to make them lose their sense of self and risk their own wellness as their psyche tries to reorganize to try to rearrange mental models. So Jason Silva talks about an experience of awe where we're so expanded that we have to rearrange our mental models to incorporate the vast beauty. Well, there's something that is at the opposite end of that, which could be called raw, or it could be called oh my God, or something, which is seeing something so disturbing that we have to rearrange our mental models in order to be able to integrate it. And that isn't a pretty process. It destroys the self, but in the opposite way, where we nearly destroy ourselves because we don't know how to keep moving in this world of such destruction towards each other. And that's my feeling, and she might have talked about that in her post. I didn't read it, and I'm not here to read every word she wrote. I have too many words of my own to say, but I read enough and then talk about stuff, not as a criticism of the other person, but just to talk about what I need to integrate with myself as a result of exploring what bits of other people's bits I do read. And so, yeah, it shows to me that things can be so disturbing that it disturbs our whole life as sensitive people who, it doesn't matter about our lovely little routines that we've developed. We watch something disturbing and it disturbs our whole life, our whole functioning, our whole routine. Everything gets messed up because we just can't take what we saw. And maybe that's a good thing. Not good, ultimately. It practically destroys that individual. But these beautiful experiences and these ugly experiences are trying to destroy us as individuals, so we come together. And this is the thing too, this person was disturbed and they're trying to figure this out and they're writing a blog post about it and sorting it out, and everyone's just going about their regular thing. But if we'd act together, then there wouldn't be this one person going around like a ping pong ball disturbed and then ending up in the psych ward on different meds in order to manage the next little routine part of the individual life. Because we act like it's this woman's personal problem that she was derailed or she slipped because of watching the show. More people maybe should slip from watching the show, and if we all slip together, we'll do something all together and not just manage an individual slip like it's their individual problem. I don't even know what I'm talking about, but I've experienced this myself before, where a show messes with me. I can't even watch it. I can't watch TV. I don't like the news. It's just so disturbing that I can't do anything about it, that it rearranges my mental models to mess up my whole life